It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Story. If there's one thing above all else that gets me, it's that. No matter what the medium, story has always been at the forefront of enjoyment for me. Who are the characters, and why are they doing what they do? Where is the plot going? How will they resolve these conflicts? It always baffled me how such greatness could be pegged into a single chart. But it really does seem like that chart they showed us in English class many moons ago holds relatively true. So, when a game that's rich in story came across my radar, I knew I absolutely had to launch right in. And that's exactly what I did with To the Moon. Well, in this case, I should say we launched right in. For this video, my brother will once again be joining me. It's been a while since he's been able to help out with this channel, but now that he has some more free time, I'm glad to welcome him back.
Now, like my brother, I would hate to ruin a great experience for anyone who has yet to play the game. So please, if you haven't done so, do yourself a favor and come back once you have. To the Moon is simply heart-wrenching. It follows the work of two doctors employed at Sigmund Corp, a business specializing in fulfilling wishes through memory alteration. During the game, you progress through a dying man's conscience and unravel his memories, both good and bad. But is everything really as it seems? Well, we're talking about Inception-esque memory-diving doctors here, so probably not. But what if the dying man's memories aren't the only ones covered in the game? And that, when the game begins, we're actually deep within someone else's memory.
Sound confusing? Well, let's take a closer look at one of the more interesting characters within the game. Dr. Neil Watts. Arrogant, conceited, and loves to crack fantastic jokes, Neil is the opposite of what one would expect in this line of work. Always pushing to just get the job done, he displays an almost uncaring nature towards his patients. On top of this, he apparently likes to crash cars, seems to be burdened by a certain work case regarding a woman named Nora, and may have an addiction to painkillers like another completely unrelated doctor. While a lot of this isn't elaborated on throughout the course of the game, there are some rather convincing things that happen at the end and thereafter.
In the final scene of To the Moon, we see Eva walk off the screen, but then that screen lingers on Neil. The screen flashes red, and then the doctor fishes in his pocket for his painkillers and proceeds to take them. But how did that happen? Isn't the red flash of the screen a portrayal of failing health of a patient, much like that of Johnny as the doctors traverse his memories? More importantly, isn't that only possible when they're inside someone's memories? Some attest this is just a depiction of pain. But what if both were true? Again, we've seen it shown as a sign of failing health throughout the game. The doctors are aware of it, and they can see it. So, does Neil feel this? He takes a painkiller, but then he just moves on. If Neil were the patient, and these his memories, it is entirely possible that the state of his real body could impose on that of his dreams. So Neil takes the pill in response to feeling pain, and we, the audience, are shown a glimpse of something bigger going on. But the game ends at this point and leaves that speculation dangling about, until the holiday episodes released later revisit it, in particular, the second.
While the first is a little more lighthearted, the second holiday episode dives right into seriousness when we see Neil messing with the memory machine, after all the other employees have gone home for the holiday. Even going so far as to hide the work he's doing behind a shelf in his office, we get the idea right away that Neil doesn't want anyone else to know about it. Even when he knows everyone else is gone, he still puts everything back into hiding before leaving the office to restore the failed power. And then, things get weird. We see two Evas. Something baffles Neil with the generator's log reports that he writes off as a glitch. But if one checks the log report again, after gaining control of Eva, we learn that it was somehow Neil who shut the power off, using a manual emergency shutdown. And from then on, things appear fine all the way until the very end, where we see Eva in a chair with a machine on her head. This snippet is shown at the very end of the second holiday episode, and while it looks like it would warrant throwing everything out that we just discussed, it actually does the opposite. Consider the following. Neil was seen tampering with the machine. He claims 30th time's the charm, so it's obvious he's been trying to use the machine on himself for a while with no results. Eva, however, is clearly doing so, meaning the method was perfected at some point, which points to these holiday episodes as taking place inside Eva's memories.
But where does that leave us with the second Eva, and the supposed second Neil? It quite possibly explains both. For if what we're seeing is present Eva using the machine to traverse her own memories, then, by definition of the machine's functions, she's not going to be aware of being inside her own mind. This is why she freaks out when she sees herself, which is a perfectly normal reaction to this type of thing. Additionally, the machine has also been shown to be able to create entirely new happenings inside one's mind, thus registering them as a memory. Quoting from the game's official website, there exists a technology that allows doctors to weave artificial memories, such that a patient can request attempts to alter their mind, and wake up with memories that didn't actually happen. However, since these new memories are permanent, the conflict between them and the existing authentic memories clash in such a way that it ceases the person's ability to properly function. What we're seeing in the second holiday episode is not what originally took place that night. Somewhere along the lines, things deviated. The second Eva is a remnant of what actually happened, as is the power log entry that Neil, and later Eva, stumble upon.
But the power log entry is rather odd in itself. It couldn't have simply been a power failure caused by the machine, since going back to the original game, it's clearly shown that a home's power supply is enough to sustain the machine, barring a small sag in power at first. With that in mind, it's not likely it would cause a corporate power supply to shut down. So what is going on here? This seems abnormal for a memory to behave this way, since this is probably not truthful to what actually happened. We know that memories can be altered, but what would be the logical reason for triggering the shutdown? Are we actually inside Eva's memory? Are we in Neil's? Or what if Neil is aware he's just a memory? Now, hear me out for a second, because I know that may sound a bit odd. But if the memory of Neil is true to his character, then he would always be pushing the boundaries and the possibilities. We know memories behave just like they would in the real moment, and that is why Johnny greets our two scientists as if they are just visitors. Even though it didn't actually occur, he is able to freely act in the moment based on what is happening. So, what if all this is just Neil figuring out that he isn't real in this moment? There's honestly a lot of interesting things that attribute to this actually. For starters, Neil is seen talking to someone on the phone, which could possibly be one of his parents. This part is confusing at first, but if you think about it, it might actually hint at what is going on. His response to Eva about why he isn't talking to them is that it isn't them on the phone. But what if Neil's parents were actually dead, and he was aware of this? If Eva didn't know this in real life, then in her memory they could very well be alive. Or possibly, Neil has had the history of his memories altered, but not completely. Neil, who has now become more aware of himself within the memory, knows it can't be them because they are gone. Perhaps Neil is dying after all, and while Eva is trying to change his past to make his future more happy, Neil, while still confused, is trying to reverse the process. Obviously, I'm just speculating since we don't know the state of Neil's parents. But this isn't the only thing that supports this. Neil is testing the boundaries of this dreamscape, whether he fully realizes it or not. This is why he has tried the helmet 30 times without luck. And the one time he did achieve success, the memory didn't know how to behave. So the memory shut down the power to the building as a failsafe. Because diving into a memory, when you're a memory yourself, probably can't be done. The act of doing so is very Inception-like, but perhaps things work differently in the universe of To the Moon. The other option for that scenario is that the memory was simply altered, so that something abnormal occurred to deviate him. Much like Inception though, there is another item that is really important to this dreamscape, and that is the gift Eva gets Neil, the sound recorder. I think this is the reason why the sound recorder is shown once again in the credits. It's very similar to a token in Inception, as it is something that can be used to prove whether or not what is occurring is real. If you were to record something within a memory, and then return to that sound recorder after the memory was over, then what you would expect to find on it probably wouldn't be there. But because the machine causes permanent damage to your own memories if you use it on yourself, this conflict can be overwhelming for a person. If the recorder was constantly recording, this sound recorder could also be taken as a coping mechanism for those who struggle with reality due to the effects of the machine. It could always be played back as a recap for what had occurred that day. But then again, the idea of gifting a sound recorder to someone else inside an altered memory, when that person receiving the gift is only a memory, is kind of absurd, because they would never be able to use it as a reality check. Well, unless that person, who is only a memory, has suffered memory damage in the past, and this is accounted for in the current memory. Or, at one point, this is what that particular memento stood for in real life, when this really happened. But now, since it is a memory, the effect is actually void. And with that, things are getting very complicated, very fast. There's also the possibility that everything we see in these bonus episodes isn't just from one memory, and that several times throughout the episode, it jumps from one memory to someone else's memory of the same event. This could possibly account for Neil asking for the company car when he already had plans to stay the whole night, which would have meant he already has some form of transportation. Or, once again, this memory had already been altered, and this is why he contradicts himself. Honestly though, I could go on and on about this for a while, but because there are multiple levels to this dreamscape, you can't really discredit anything, which prevents you from moving forward at all. This whole thing is some weird, self-imposed Limbo Inception mashup. Whatever the case, my head is starting to hurt. There's so many different possibilities in the game, but without clarity, a lot of things are left in limbo. I could be wrong about a lot of things too. But now that we've mind dumped that all on you, what are your thoughts? I think the following 3 questions would clear up a lot of the confusion. Is Neil dying at the end of To the Moon, and thus becomes a patient? Is Eva using the machine to change Neil's life? And, in the second holiday episode, is Neil just a memory who is aware he's within a dreamscape? Let us know in the comments below. Maybe in the next entry, we'll see if the top continues to spin or not. Until then, the only thing spinning will be our heads. If you haven't already, make sure to follow Freebird Games, as they've been releasing some nice teaser images as of lately. We're definitely looking forward to finding Paradise, as I'm sure it will be an amazing game. Thanks for tuning in to our Inception tour of To the Moon. If you'd like to join us on our YouTube voyage and screw with our memories, then the subscribe button is just what you're looking for. Thanks for watching, guys and gals, and until our next video, cheers. You've made it to the end of the video, but wait, your quest isn't over yet. We have plenty of other exciting videos on our channel, so be sure to check them out. Perhaps you'd like to hear about the mysterious merchant in Resident Evil 4. Or maybe you'd like to stick with the memory theme and take a trip back to your childhood with Pixel Portals, a new environment-based series on our channel. Regardless, I hope you enjoy.